G'day, FanCasters. Welcome to another episode here on the pod where we have a proper footy chat. It's your boy Joe, joined with Swiz. How's it going, my friend?
I'm good. Yourself, mate?
I'm doing very well. It could have been better. Why the hell did Collingwood win that grand final? I have no idea. That was not deliberate. No, that was not advantage play on. That is the wrong call, Swiz. I will die on this hill.
Yes, mate. The only thing I can say is, like, in reflection, there were some decisions that could have gone Collingwood's way throughout the game. So maybe that also, the flip side, that 50 to side bottom seemed a bit long, but that's footy. It happens like that. Credit to Collingwood. I've sort of calmed down now after giving it to Chris all, leading up to it. And then, he shared his thoughts. But and credit to Ben, my other co-host on Supercoach Insider, who, backed up and went to the Collingwood, celebration day and interviewed a lot of the supporters on the match. So they played well. Both teams recruited for it, and we'll get into a trade period later. But this is where they set it off. We can talk about all the on-field stuff, and some great coaching by both coaches, Fags and McRae, and really good efforts by McRae to take them from 17th when he first came into the last 2 years. But as much as they've had all the right things on field, the off-field setup. And that's not just the trades, but it's also then getting your back of house right too, which I think a lot of people forget. Justin Lepage is a fantastic, I think he's head of footy, but he's been a great assistant coach. Probably failed a little with his coaching, but and then some of the other assistants that they've had through there, amazing backroom staff. So credit to them. Enjoy it. There's a huge Collingwood fan base, and they're the biggest club for a reason. So well done, unfortunately, but well done to them.
And a massive shout out to our very own Swoop Luke as well. Congratulations, mate. You didn't feature on too many episodes today this season. Of course, you guys have been up and about, but a massive congratulations to you and your mob. It's nice to see, someone who puts in the hard yards and really so committed to their team and, living and breathing their team to enjoy that success and, cashing in those receipts. I can only hope one day that I can do the same, but look, they were the team to beat all year, and it makes sense that the number one team won the flag, and it made sense that number two was there to compete. Brisbane, I thought, did a really good job. They came to play. Yes, as we sort of predicted in the stream before the game last week, that Collingwood were going to come and burst out of the blocks, but Brisbane did a really good job just keeping in touch, taking advantage of Collingwood's inaccuracy in front of goal, capitalising on their opportunities, and to go down 13-8 to 12-18, down by 4 points at the end of the game. Some might think that, yes, all right, Collingwood deserved to win it, and if Brisbane won, would have been, sort of a bit of a robbery, I guess, but bad kicking is bad football, and Collingwood fans themselves would be telling everyone a lot of times during the final series, especially against Melbourne as well, hey, no, you kick yourself out of it, you deserve to lose. So, look, it was anyone's game, and when Charlie Cameron kicked that goal, I know you and I were watching that game together, and I burst out into Country Road. Take me home. Unfortunately, we got lost along the way.
Yes, it's to have a team actually kick more goals and still go down, and just Brisbane took their opportunities. Collingwood had way more better players on the ground. Up until, if the result had gone the other way, they were still taught that Bobby Hill would be best on ground. I was leading in the Kitty Coleman camp. I thought he was brilliant for the Lions.
He was.
And he could have not done any more, but they probably had not as many of the spread that Collingwood did. Like, if you probably went through the top 12 players on the ground, I'd say 8, 9 of them were Collingwood players. I thought Suitcase, Hugh McCluggage played as good as he could. There's always been some criticism about him, and his goal kicking stepped up when he needed to, kicked an important goal. Joe Danaher was fantastic. I know you never like hearing that as an Essendon supporter, but as you yelled out many times throughout our day out there, we were down at Cranbourne and at a mate's house, and yes, they got yelled at many times, but I thought Danaher did, again, everything that he could. But then the flip side there, probably some of the worst players on the ground, and you don't like to go the negative, but there were definitely Lions players outside of maybe Billy Frampton, who you can argue that he did have played his role a little bit on Harris Andrews, but I think Harris Andrews still had about 100, Supercoach points.
And he still was marks. Equal first on ground for marks.
He's one of the better players, I thought, for Brisbane on the day. It wasn't so. Frampton, I think the only person maybe worse than him was Jared Berry, and just more because Berry did not just butcher a couple of times, but gave away a couple of free 50s, which were very crucial in the game, which is ill-disciplined stuff. So I thought he definitely was up there. Even Eric Hipwood, one of his poorest games, and he'll be looking to rebound. The hard thing with these matches, and when you're in this situation, and I know I've been there as playing local cricket as well. Like, you make finals, you do everything right throughout the season, and then because somebody has a poor game in your team, or sometimes it can just be an umpire's decision or whatever, you miss out, and then you've got to back set up. And if most things are right and you do most things, you're pretty well playing out the season just to get back to that situation. Now, we see some clubs, they sort of take it for granted and just expect it's going to happen again, and that's where they fall away. And we saw that bit with the Swans this year. But if you're Eric Hipwood, you're just waiting to get to that situation again back on prelim or grand final day to rectify yourself. So it's a long wait, and you might not actually ever get back there, because not if your team doesn't perform, but also your team could get there and you could get injured or stuff like that. So those players who stand up, take their opportunity, well done to them. But that might be your one chance of, having that moment.
Especially since the Brisbane Lions have made 4 prelims before that. They had made 4 prelims and just fallen short time after time. And the questions were always arising, can this team actually go all the way? Can this team, and of course, we haven't even spoken about that horrific MCG record. They've won 1 of their last 15 games.
Yeah, I don't agree with Damo, who's like, and Damien Barrett, like, the hoodoo's gone. It's like, well, they haven't actually still won. Like the Melbourne game, they choked early in the year. We talked about the Hawks game. The Sunday, my other half mentioned last week was, their record at the G isn't great. Mm-hmm. And to sit there and say, well, it's that hoodoo doesn't exist now because they got so close. But in the end of the day, they still didn't win. So until they actually come to the G and get the 4 points, or they get up in a big final there, well, to me, the hoodoo's still there. Like, you're a great home team, and it's hard for these non-Victorian teams to come down and beat the big Victorian clubs at home.
100%.
We've seen that with the Giants and the Tigers, with their little rivalry they had with the prelim and the grand final. It's not just not playing there all the time compared to Richmond and Collingwood, in particular Hawthorn, Melbourne, who play at the G all the time. But the fact that the fan base that you got, like the grand final was a little bit more balanced, so it wasn't as dominant for Collingwood compared to the prelims, where you rock up to a prelim and it's 90,000 one team, and the other teams, there's probably more neutrals than.
Yeah.
So that's a hard thing to come on.
It's also the dimensions of the ground,
and that
because the West Coast Eagles were able to come across in that fabled 2010 grand final and beat the Pies there because they have a similar size. In fact, it's an identical size ground
close,
to the MCG, and the way they play there, the way they train, it can be easily translated across to the MCG. Whereas these other teams like Brisbane at the Gabba, Adelaide, their grounds are a lot narrower, and it's a lot harder to defend the spread, especially against a team like Collingwood and Richmond when they were, really good. They could spread so aggressively. And it was really hard for these interstate teams to match them, not only with the crowd, but also they now have to work a lot harder. They're not used to defending the ground. It used to be a lot easier. Somewhere where they knew a man was marked, all of a sudden, oh no, they're actually leaving a lot more space than they otherwise would have.
Yeah.
And they can be cut through the middle. And that's what Collingwood did really well, attack through the corridor. Whereas Brisbane, they want to try and play a slow build game style, try and use the space that the MCG provided. However, I don't think they used it effectively enough, whereas Collingwood took advantage of their wide ball use and decided to cut through the middle. And then we saw the discrepancies in the inside 50s, discrepancy in the scoring shots. I was a little bit disappointed that Brisbane didn't decide to take the game on a bit more, especially after Nathan Murphy went down with concussion and was subbed out. I thought, hey, this is your chance. You got the 2 Twin Towers, Danaher, who was in great form early. Eric Hipwood, try and get him into the game a bit more, attack the forward 50 a lot quicker. Unfortunately, they didn't do it. Seemed to be that the occasion just got to him, whether it's the occasion, whether it's the MCG hoodoo factor, whether it's a combination of all those things. At the end of the day, they didn't handle the situation and the game as well as Collingwood didn't. That's the result we get.
It's a great point you bring up, and it's something that doesn't get discussed enough, because even back when West Coast used to play out of Subiaco and the Wacker, Subiaco nearly reflected Waverley's dimensions back there, and that's where a lot of footy was played back in those early 90s. There's even a grand final played there. So it's something that they've always, able to not have that worry when they come here. GWS, probably the same, because Manuka is very similar to the MCG. And they obviously play those 4 or 5 games a year at Canberra, where, SCG is a tiny ground. That's probably what the Swans do actually all right at Geelong, Brisbane, very reflective of Etihad, which they play very well at Etihad or Marvel or whatever name we want to go at.
Docklands.
Compared to the MCG, much different dimensions. So it's an awesome point, mate. And maybe their new Springfield base, that they need to rectify those ground dimensions and make it more like the MCG, because that might be the thing that helps them get over the line and actually get the chance to train there. And we'll see how, when we talk about trade period, what they can do and other clubs to try to close the gap on Collingwood.
Exactly. And that was our discussion on the grand final. Thank you guys so much for watching. Massive congratulations once again, begrudgingly, I hate to say it, but well done, Collingwood. You did what I can only hope my team does in the near future. You can laugh harder, Swiz. It's all right. No one can hear you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, all that wonderful goodness, and stay tuned for our live stream when we go over the trade period. It is very, very exciting here at FanCast.